Our first speaker for the evening is Aaminah Tabassum. She'll be presenting her talk titled Midwives, the Forgotten First Responders. Aaminah is a master's student in international economic development from Metro Detroit, Michigan. A fun fact about her is that she loves archery. That's right, Hawkeye and Green Arrow better watch out. Please join me in welcoming Aaminah.
Imagine this. In rural Yemen, a woman cries out in distress. Her village is flooded and she's in labor. The nearest healthcare facility is hours away, and Yemen is in a civil war. There's no guarantee she'll get the treatment that she needs. As the minutes pass, her odds are dwindling. In fact, in Yemen, every 2 hours, a woman dies in childbirth. So who do you think reaches her first? Sorry, I forgot the clicker. So who do you think reaches her first? EMTs? Aid workers? Local police? The answer is none of the above. It's a young woman, barely 22, with a backpack. So question 2, at 22, what was in your backpack? School supplies, food, pamphlets from changing your major 50 times. In her backpack, there are some pretty interesting things. Definitely would not pass a TSA security check, but interesting stuff nonetheless. There are sterile gloves, there are metal instruments, umbilical clamps, there is all sorts of things that she needs to facilitate an emergency birth outside of a hospital setting. This is a midwife, and she is a first responder. I didn't know this until a couple months ago, when I started my internship at Direct Relief, which is a medical aid organization located in sunny Santa Barbara, just minutes away from the Pacific Ocean. And I mainly put this photo up here to remind everyone that the sun does exist. It's just not here at the moment. We don't all live in an eternal Michigan winter. On my very first day, my supervisor took me on a tour of their massive distribution center, and we went past all the different types of aid that they send out. So there were hurricane packs, there were emergency backpacks, like diabetes medications, cancer medications, and then finally, we stopped in front of this glass case. And she very casually said, "This is our midwife kit. It contains enough supplies to facilitate 50 live births in almost any environment." And then she moved on. Sorry. But me, I was still frozen to the spot. Because in that moment, I realized I had forgotten something pretty fundamental. I had forgotten that women give birth. My mother is probably watching this, like, you ungrateful. Like 18 hours of labor wasted on you. But what I mean by that is that I forgot that women continue to give birth regardless of the circumstances of the world around them. They give birth in war. They give birth in floods, in earthquakes, when hospitals collapse, and when borders close. And midwives, they're sometimes the first or perhaps the only responder that can reach them. Which is why our current reality, where midwives are underfunded, understaffed, and under-equipped, is extremely detrimental. Because when that happens, women die from things we know how to treat. They die from preventable causes, which is completely unacceptable in 2026. And midwives are an incredible, incredible resource because when they're well-equipped, they can provide up to 90% of essential maternal and newborn health care services. On top of that, research shows that for every dollar invested in midwives, there's a $16 return on investment. The World Health Organization says that fully investing in midwives by 2035 can avert roughly 2/3 of maternal newborn deaths and stillbirths, saving 4.3 million lives per year. This makes them one of the most cost-effective solutions in global health. So that brings me to question 3. If this work has such incredible returns, why is there so much underinvestment in their workforce? To answer that question, let's go back to Santa Barbara, in front of the midwife kit. See, the thing about the midwife kit is it's not exactly cutting-edge Iron Man technology. It's actually a pretty simple idea. It's a container that contains everything that midwives need to do their job in different environments. But in order for it to exist, someone had to recognize the suffering that women go through in war. Someone had to recognize the important work that midwives do to ease that suffering, which is why the first step to investment is visibility. We cannot help, serve, or innovate for populations who we refuse to see. And that's why we need to think about how can we increase visibility for midwives. And this isn't just a question for somebody who works in healthcare or humanitarian response. Every single field has a role to play. If you're in policy, visibility means inclusion in frameworks. If you're a business or finance, visibility is capital allocation. Engineering, it's what or who you build for. And data or research, it's what you measure. Every field shapes what the world takes seriously, and we have to take them seriously. Now look, I know this is a pretty depressing topic. I don't know who decided that I should speak first, but here we are. But honestly, I think the story of midwives is a story of hope. Because you see, in war and in disasters, all the odds are stacked up against midwives and the women that they serve. And yet they show up every single day pushing for new life to be born, life that prevails over the death and destruction around them. And with everything going on in the world, that's exactly the type of grit and perseverance that we need. So we have to support them. So small action item for you. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to a petition drafted by the International Confederation of Midwives, and basically calling on governments and healthcare officials to support and fund midwives. Because sometimes justice and hope don't always come in uniforms or sirens or helicopters. Sometimes it's just a girl with a backpack. Thank you.